I'm so very happy to be here and to be invited here and to invite all of you to join something at the same time. And I see Winnie may have stepped out of the room, no doubt organizing something outside, but it's especially nice to be invited when Winnie's been involved, because some 20 years ago we were working on workers' rights in China, migrant workers' rights in China, as it happens. And here we are 20 years later with our government announcing that we're about to begin negotiating a free trade agreement with China. So times have changed, and yet many things have stayed the same. I'd like to especially talk to you about Food Secure Canada today. It's the organization I have the pleasure to be the executive director of. Lauren Baker here is the vice chair of our board, and Mustafa is one of the founders of Food Secure Canada. And so I'm delighted to be here to talk to you about that. I'm afraid I did not bring enough copies of this publication from Montreal, but you can get it on our website. It's called Resetting the Table, A People's Food Policy for Canada. And it's the product of 3 years of work by over 3,000 people who held consultations and kitchen table talks all over the country to try and define what we should have as a food policy for this country. And it's a very, very rich document that I'm very, very proud to advocate. Food Secure Canada has existed for about 10 years. We're a coalition of organizations and individuals with 3 core commitments. And I think all of these 3 commitments are very much related to what we've heard so far today on migrant workers and migrant workers' rights. The first one is zero hunger. Over 2 million people in this country regularly don't have enough to eat because they cannot afford it. That's the first commitment. The second commitment is safe and healthy food for all. So as we all watch a massive meat recall take place because it is produced in such huge facilities where a small problem becomes a very big problem very quickly, we're reminded of how important this is, that we can have safe and healthy food for all. And the third commitment is to sustainable production of our food. And I take sustainable here to mean socially sustainable, economically sustainable, and ecologically sustainable. And clearly, we need to be thinking a whole lot more about how our food is produced, including how migrant workers are exploited in the production of our food. And I see that as something that's very, very important. Resetting the Table is based on a framework. Our name is Food Secure Canada, but we're not actually a food security organization. We're an organization that defends the concept of food sovereignty, which is sort of like a food security plus. It's not only that everyone has enough to eat, it's that we pay attention to how our food is produced, to who is producing it, ensuring that they have conditions that are adequate. It's based on a series of principles which you can read about, which I'm not going to go into detail now because I don't want to get too caught up in that. But the notion is that nations and communities and people have control over their food. I want to talk about 2 things very briefly. One is our movement, and the second one is advocacy. And I guess I'll start with the advocacy agenda. One of the things that brings together the many organizations that make up Food Secure Canada and the individuals who make it up, because it is all about people, and you're all invited to join. It'll only cost you $10 if you're a student, and it'll cost you $30 if you have regular employment, and even that we'll negotiate, right, Mustafa? It's not a big deal. So it costs a little bit more for organizations, but still proportional to your income. But what our members felt was they had to come together and have a voice for a national food policy for Canada that would integrate these 3 core commitments. And that's what we have gone about doing. And our first big advocacy foray, if you will, was when the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to food came to Canada this spring. How many people in the room remember that? Fair number, but still many who perhaps didn't hear about that. He called the conditions of migrant workers extremely precarious. And I actually had a chance to come here in Toronto and listen to the briefing that he had from Chris and from others who are deeply involved in this issue. He's made a series of recommendations to the Government of Canada. They were not taken very seriously. Something that you'll see again last week as Stephen Harper went to New York and rather than addressing the UN General Assembly, decided to go to a private awards ceremony with Henry Kissinger. So we do have a real problem with Canada's commitment on human rights at this time, and Canada's entire human rights record, by the way, is up for review right now. And there are NGOs who are pulling together a submission on that, just as we put together a submission on the right to food when the Special Rapporteur came. And I invite you to get involved in that, and I can give anybody more information who would care to have it. I think it's very clear from the presentations this morning, as well as just common sense, that temporary foreign workers must have the right to immigrate to Canada. This is a matter of fundamental, basic human dignity and equality. I have to say it's not an issue on which Food Secure Canada has done a lot of work, but I am very prepared to collaborate with the organizations that are here to make it a bigger part of our work. I think it's extremely important that we get that right, and that when we talk about sustainable food production and healthy and safe food, that migrant workers are not forgotten in that process. Just to sort of wrap up quickly on the movement building side, every 2 years all the members of Food Secure Canada get together for a big feast of ideas and presentations, workshops, and energizing ourselves. This year it's happening in Edmonton from November 1st to November 4th. Our conference is called Powering Up Food for the Future, and I'd like to invite you all to come to that. I am very pleased to say that some trade unions have already gotten involved in that and are helping to support that, that conference. The CAW, the CEP, QP have all become sponsors of that event, as they have been in the past. And we also have several trade unions who are members of Food Secure Canada. But I don't think that's really enough. I think there's so many ways we could be much more concrete in what we do together. Everybody cares about food. Everybody cares what they're putting in their mouth. We need to talk through trade union newsletters to your members. We need you to be involved in our campaigns for advocacy. When we're calling for a food policy for Canada, we would like to make sure that workers' rights are front and center in that food policy. When there's cutbacks to the Food Inspection Agency or to other sectors that affect our food, we need to stand together and oppose those. And when migrant workers are killed, we need to stand together and denounce that. So that's my invitation to you, is to work together. And I very much look forward to the workshop this afternoon where we can explore some of these issues in greater depth. Thank you.